We're going to start chapter 28, the Maral, Perk Shmona V'Esrim in the Maral, page Kuf Yud Beis. V'yom Moshe Hashem, Bi Hashem, Lo Ish Dvorim Anochi. Here Moshe is having the dialogue at the bush, the burning bush. And Hashem says to Moshe, I want you to be my agent to take the Jews out of Egypt. And to go to Paro. He says, but I'm not a man of words. Vayishlach Moshe shoyelo kol hamalos. Vav shleimus haguf hoyelo. Moshe had every conceivable, possible attribute and quality in the physical and spiritual sense. Moshe Omru al komoso, in terms of his height, his health, his vibrancy, every aspect of his existence was at an exceptional level, which is almost as perfect as you could be. Person's not able to speak. I mean, speech is the main characteristic of a human being, to be able to express yourself. In every other aspect, it's perfect. In this aspect, he's not able to express. Why does the deficiency manifest itself? Hashem allow it in this particular aspect of his function. With speech identifies, and that's the expression of thought, of the intellect. Da, so the Maral says this principle. Ki mibnei shoye Moshe rochuk min hachomer. Moshe's only relevance to physicality was that he was a human being. He ate because he's human. The degree that he had to sleep is because he's human. But in terms of his being of purpose and what he valued and what he experienced and where he was at was only spirituality. Something which is abstract, and koach bilti nivdo min hachormi k'mo hapev halosha. He explains this. Shekoach hariyo v'ashmiyo ein pulosen mitnua rak b'menuch. Let's speak. Vision, seeing. There's no action to be able to see. Correct? Hearing, there's no action. Speech, you have to move your mouth, you have to move your tongue. So there's movement. They function in a sedate state, in a passive state. The eye is open, you see. The ear is not blocked. The ear canal, you hear. What causes movement? Movement has to do with physicality. Something moves. What is moving? The physical moves. So if you speak, and to be able to articulate words, how do you articulate words? Your lips have to move, and your tongue has to be involved. So therefore, that itself is what? An expression of, although thought is spiritual, because it's abstract, it's unrelated to the physical, but in terms of the expression of that, there's movement. Movement is the movement of the physical. That's an expression of the physical functioning. So the power to express, the power of expression, that's a physical aspect of the person. We speak about idolatry. We say idolatry, an idol has a mouth, it can't speak. Right? That's what David HaMelech says. We're saying the mouth is what? That quantifies a person. They're supposed to have value, which is mouth, which is expression, but they don't speak. So it seems to be what indicates the spiritual aspect of something, the power of speech, to be able to express it. And here we're saying just to the contrary, because Moshe is such a dimension of spiritual being, speech, which is physical, that's why he was deficient in that area. Ein dov ze kasha l'mevi. He says, it's not even, if you understand what we're discussing here, the question is not even a question. Because certain questions need an answer. But if you understand the subject matter, the question is not even a question. Ki adibur ba'atzmo ein sofek. The actual power of speech itself. Speaking. Kevan shu al yidei hatnuhu poel gashmi. Since the only way you could articulate words, the lips, the tongue have to be involved. So what is that? That's called a physical function. That's a physical function. Avula yidei sechel shudei l'tzarf hadibur. But without the brain, without the mind, sending the signals how the mouth should express itself, the mouth doesn't function. So what is peh lehem? Peh they have. V'lo yidaberu. So why don't the lips move? Because there's no connection. There's nothing behind it. It's just a piece of stone. It's a piece of wood, a piece of pottery. That's all it. That's what the idol is. That's what David said. Peh lehem. They have the physicality. But why doesn't it move? The movement is because of what's transmitted from the brain. What is the brain? The function of the brain. That's abstract. That's kedusha. That's spirituality. The expression of that is physical. So that's what David is saying. They only have mouths. But why doesn't the mouth speak? Why is there no movement? Because there's nothing channeled from a power behind it to allow it to speak. This is a child, an infant. A child has lips, has a tongue, but the child only at a certain age begins speaking. Why? He has all the faculties to be able to speak, because the mind is not, that part of the brain is not sufficiently developed to give the child the ability to use those faculties, the tongue and the lips, to articulate thought, because the thought, the intellect is not there. What was Moshe lacking? Not the mind, not the understanding. It was the transmission was transmitting to faulty faculties. He had a speech impediment because his tongue and lips were burnt. They were damaged. So what's damaged? The physical faculty is damaged. It has nothing to do with, you could send all, God forbid, person's an amputee. The brain sends messages that the arm should lift itself, but there's no arm, so what happens? It manifests itself in nothing. That's the reason why it's known. People, God forbid, become amputees for a very extended period of time. They feel like lifting their arm. They feel they have an arm. Because the brain is so patterned to send the messages to lift. After a while, extended time passes, the message is no longer sent because there's no response. So the brain understands there's nothing really to transmit to anything. Okay? Fubavari Pol Gashmi. The articulation definitely is a physical, that's a physical act. What Moshe had was the abstract, which was the intellect, to express, but it was transmitted, as I said, to a faculty that was damaged. So with this, you understand the question never began. David says, the idol has a mouth, doesn't speak, but we just said, speaking is a physical function. It's all physical. There's nothing spiritual about an idol, no. It has the faculty, but there's nothing behind the faculty. It's nothing. It's stone, it's wood, it's plaster, or gold and silver, that's all it is. Shavlad Yotze Lavir Olam says, a child in utero, versus in Nida, that there's an angel that teaches the child the whole Torah's entirety. The child sees from one end to the other to another. The child has no limitation because that setting is a spiritual setting. As the child comes out, the Gemara says a malach touches its mouth, and when it touches its mouth, it forgets everything it was taught. Right? Shavad yotz lav olam ba malach v'sotro alpiv. The word sotro means more than touches its mouth. Actually, sotro means bangs its mouth, banging, or literally slapping, slaps him on the mouth. And that slap causes him to forget all the Torah that the angel taught him. Lama omru sotro piv. What did he slap? Say, comes into existence, forgets all the Torah. The angel has to somehow do an act to hit him on the mouth, which causes him to forget. The expression of the mouth is a physical function. the expression, meaning the faculty, speaking, and what allows the words to be formed. Right? It's the tongue and the lips. One doesn't have a tongue, one can't speak. Right? One doesn't have lips, also affects the speech. What is a human being? A human being is a composite, a soul, and a body. So the neshama, which is totally spiritual, is infused in the body. Right? It's a composite. Physical, spiritual. Before a child is born, why is the child unlimited? Because the soul is not infused in the body yet. So when we speak about the child sees which child? We're talking about the soul outside of the body. Outside of the body. When the child's about to be born, that's when the neshama is infused, attaches itself fully to the body. Then it no longer functions as a spiritual being. In utero, the soul is independent of the body. There's some level of association. But the soul has its full profile and identity as neshama. As neshama is unlimited. You see from one end of the world to the other. Your capacity is what is unlimited. Because within spiritual realm, the concept of finite, it is finite, but it's at a different level. As neshmosa nivdelas vosi sichlis l'gamri, v'yeda kol haTorah, therefore knows everything. It's taught, it retains everything, knows everything. Ubeishitzi also, but when the child leaves the womb of its mother, nigma brioso, now the child is completed, physically ready to be born. When does the mother push the child out through the contraction? Child's ready to be born. That means in the physical sense, it's ready to begin functioning as a physical being. What happens at that moment? V'haneshama tischaber lechomer. That's when the neshama attaches itself fully to the physicality. So now the neshama is entombed in physical. Kashet tischaber neshama el haguf. Now when the soul attaches itself to the body, it's fully infused in the body. Now he begins speaking. Now you become a speaking being, a speaking species. Before you're born, you're not yet a species. You're called a fetus. Fetus. When a child, if God forbid a person goes and aborts a child before it's born, you're not permitted, but it's not considered. There's no liability of the death penalty. It's not you've killed a human being. But yet, a moment later, after it's born, you kill that child, that's murder. Carries the death penalty. Why? Because until it's born, it's not completed. It only becomes a human being with birth. When the body expels it, now it's a human being. It's a separate entity. So it's become a physical being with a soul infused. But where's the neshama? Neshama doesn't function independent. It's entombed in the physicality. Now it begins speaking. Call it crying, call it whatever it is. But the faculty of the mouth, now everything expresses itself through the mouth. The lips move, the tongue moves. What causes the forgetting of Torah? The concept of forgetting is what? I once said, the Gemara says that if the Jews would have never sinned with the Egel, with the golden calf at Sinai, then, and the luchos and the tablets wouldn't have been smashed, the Jews would have never forgotten the Torah they studied. They would have retained it fully. The concept of forgetting had no relevance. So I asked why. Now, before Adam ate of the tree of knowledge, Eitzadas, he was an eternal being. Adam saw before he ate of the Eitzadas, it says, Bisofa Olam at Sofa, the exact state of the child in utero that he sees from one end of the world to the other. That was Adam's state in the physical sense. as a physical being. Why? Because Adam's physicality was fully spiritualized. He was a spiritual being in a physical context, but his concentration is spiritual. Therefore, there's no barriers. The concept of limitation is if you're called a physical being. He was not a physical being. He was a spiritual being with a material makeup that was spiritualized. Therefore, he sees from one end. What happened when he ate of the Eitzadas? He compromised that. He forfeited that spiritual profile. So what happens? He doesn't see any longer from one end of the world. He doesn't radiate a radiance which has a semblance of Hashem's radiance. That was a consequence of becoming a physical being. Because now the neshama, what is the basis for the spiritualization of the body? The soul. So if the soul fully permeates every aspect of physicality, but it can't. You know why? Because in the physicality now, there's evil. When he ingested that, there's evil. Evil cannot be spiritualized. And it can't even be extracted. The person has to die for that. That's why Hashem says, the day you eat, you will die. Doesn't mean instantaneous death. The only way you could be purged of that, it's only through decomposition in the ground and ultimately resurrection. As the Ramchal explains, what's going to be resurrected? Only the pure matter. The impure matter will not be resurrected. That will stay in the ground. That's the understanding. So now you see, what about forgetting? Forgetting has to do with, that's the physical. What is death? Death means it exists and no longer exists. You study something, now you forget. What is forgetting? It's a dissipation, a deterioration of thought. It's like something evaporates. It fades. It's here and it's gone. The whole concept of here and transition is only a concept in the physical. In the spiritual, there's no such thing as transition. It is what it is. It's a constant. So when he became, death is a transition. Person's born, transition is birth, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, then old age, and eventually death. It's a continuous transition from stage to stage until it no longer exists. You study, you retain, but there's a transition. What happens? Totally fades out. But that's a physical. That has to do with the physical. It's not spiritual. So therefore, the moment the child becomes physical, he touches the child on the mouth. Now the child becomes a speaking species. That's now the lips and the tongue are engaged. So how do you express that thought? The mind, which is abstract, which is spiritual, it manifests itself in the physical. Once it goes through a physical process, then already it's lost its spiritual potency. It's very interesting. The Gemara says in Eruvin, Bruya was the wife of Reb Meir, and she was the daughter of one of the 10 martyrs, of Chanina ben Traja. She was a very learned woman. She was a personage, spiritual person, and she was in the basement. She saw one of the students was studying, and when he studied, he did not verbalize, did not articulate the words. So she went over to him, and she kicked him. She says, "What are you wasting your time for? Don't you realize you're not going to retain it?" And she cited a pasuk, a verse. It says, "Chaim hi lemotzeim." Literally means it brings life to the person who comes upon it, who finds them. So she explains what it means, and the Gemara says, "Chaim hi l'misha motzi b'peh." It brings life to the one who articulates it. That's the only way you retain. If you don't articulate it, you will not retain it. Why? Torah is only retained if you articulate it. But if you just meditate on it and you don't express it verbally, you will not retain it. But if Torah is so holy and so removed from physicality, it's a thing. The more it remains in the abstract state, the more it retains its spiritual status. No, you have to articulate it. You have to verbalize it. Only then will you retain it. Why? So I think because for the same reason. The moment we're born, we're physical beings. So in what capacity do we have to operate? Accomplishment is through the physical. So if speech is a physical function of the human being. It's a physical faculty. You're expressing the thought which is abstract, which is intangible. But as a human being, what's considered an acquisition? You've acquired something. It's a physical act. You've taken control. Everything expresses itself in the physical. It brings life to the one who articulates it. It's an expression. It's a verbal expression. Okay? Right? This Tunkelus is quoted continuously. It's the Aramaic translation. It says, when he infused Adam with a soul, he blew a soul of life through his nostrils, and he became a living species, nefesh. So the Targum says, "L'ruach chayo mimalolo." He became a living spirit that spoke. What's speaking? Speaking again. That's verbalization, articulation of the lips and the tongue. That's a physical act. That means a physical faculty is involved with the expression of thought. What is the profile of a human being? The soul infused within the body. The body doesn't function without the soul. The ability to speak, now you've been completed. As long as that child is in the uterus, is in the womb of the mother, doesn't have the power of speech. Because what is the child in the womb? Totally, the neshama is not infused yet in the body. Until the child's ready to be born. It's interesting. Gemara has a discussion. Uber yerachimo. The fetus is seen as one of the organs of the mother. Because if the child's on life support, if the child is not connected to the mother's system, the child dies. So therefore, the uber is like the thigh. It's like another organ of the mother. But literally, it means this, the way we're explaining it. The neshama yet, what gives identity, independent identity to a person, or to function as a human being, when the neshama is infused in the body. Without a soul, you can't live. So why is the body of the fetus alive? Because it's on life support of the mother. When the child's ready to be born, that life support shuts down. When does it shut down? When the soul is fully infused in the body. So pre-birth, there is no soul in that body. That's why the child sees from one end of the world to the other. What's the child? The child's the neshama. The body's just something growing in the mother. It's a growth. Now the body's ready to be born. So what happens now? Now the soul's infused in the body. So now it becomes a physical entity. The soul is entombed in the body. But now the body functions on its own. Because the body cannot live without a soul. Now it's interesting. The Maral says in his commentary on Pirkei Avos, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, Rabbi Yochanan says that based on the verse before right after the Mabul, after the great flood, it says, Hashem says, I will not destroy the world again. Why? Ki yetzer lev odam ra min urov. The inclination of man is evil from the moment he's cast from the womb of his mother. So the Gemara says the yetzer hara, the evil inclination, does not come upon the child until the child is born. So the Maral asks, why? So he says, explains over there, but he doesn't explain it as well as here. He says because the yetzer hara could only affect something that's completed. Completed. And the child is not ready to be born until it's completed. That it's pushed through contractions from mother's body, that's the negation, it's completed. Therefore, when does the Yetzer Hara come upon the child? The moment it's born. So let's understand. But if we're saying now, the body, the child till it's born is an appendage of the mother. And the soul is not even the body. So what would the Yetzer Hara affect? It has to affect the child. But the child is the mother. Everyone has his own tailor-made Yetzer Hara, his own evil inclination. But until it's born, if it has the soul in the body, so good, that's a person. But until the child's born, there's no soul in the body. So what is it? It's part of the mother. But so it's part of the mother. It's the evil inclination of the mother who has an appendage growing within the woman's womb. So therefore, when does the child become a human being? That's when the soul is infused in the body. That's only upon birth. Right? According to what he's explaining. So it's very understandable. That's Yetzer Leva Adam Ra Min Urav. When he's cast from the womb of his mother, that's when the Yetzer Hara, because now he becomes a human being. Before, he's not a human being before. He's only an appendage. He's an appendage of the mother. But the way we're explaining with the Maral here, what he draws from that, what he extrapolates from that, you can't say it, because what he says over there says something phenomenal. He says the Yetzer Hara is only permitted to affect the person once he's born. Why? Because then the emphasis is because then he's complete. Because the Yetzer Hara was only given permission to affect something that's complete. When is the child complete? When he's ready to be born. So he says if a person lives his life as if he's not a complete person. For instance, he says, he sleeps because he has no choice but to sleep. But every waking moment of his day is fully occupied in his spirituality and Torah mitzvahs. What does that mean? The man never feels complete. Although in the physical sense he's complete when he was born as a human being, but in terms of his function, he functions and lives like he's not complete. If you function in that context, you're not subject to the influences of the evil inclination. That's what the Maral says over there. But why? Because you see that when does the Yetzer Hara come upon the person? Only when he's complete. But the way we're explaining it from this Maral has no relevance to that. Before he's born, the neshama is not within the body. But the evil inclination is tailor-made to the person. But he's not a person until he's born, because only then is the soul infused in the body. So you can't extrapolate, therefore, at what the Maral says in Pirkei Avos. So he's saying something over here totally different. It's interesting. There's a famous Gemara. Antoninus was the Roman emperor. Tosa says, eventually, cites the Jerusalem Talmud, Yerushalmi, eventually he converted to be a Jew. Converted to be a Jew. And he fled. And Reb Yehuda Nossi would teach him Torah in private. There was a tunnel, an underground tunnel between the palace of Reb Yehuda Nossi, who was the Prince of Israel, and the Roman Emperor. He had a palace in Israel. And he would come through that underground tunnel to Reb Yehuda Nossi's palace without anybody knowing this, and he would study Torah. He'd be taught by Reb Yehuda Nossi, Torah. And eventually, as he said, he converted. How did it happen? Why did he have such a capacity for spirituality? So Yerushalmi says something interesting. Initially, there was a decree by the Romans that a person who circumcises his child, he will be put to death, the child will be killed. So Reb Yehuda Nossi, his parents had him circumcised. So they would come to the homes after the woman gave birth to check to see if the child was circumcised. At the same time that Reb Yehuda Nossi was born, Antoninus was born. So Eliyahu came, and he switched the babies. That Antoninus was Reb Yehuda Nossi's mother, and she nursed him. So because she nursed the milk from Reb Yehuda Nossi's mother, that milk gave him a tremendous desire to be connected to spirituality. That's Tosa says in Sanhedrin. So that inclination, positive inclination, to be drawn to that, and ultimately it led to a conversion. That he became a full Jew. So what was one of the discussions? And Reb Yehuda Nossi, he was the Prince of Israel. One of the things they had a question, when does the soul enter into a child? We know that life is what? Is 40 days. Until then, the Gemara says it's called just fluid. Does it enter into the child at the time of conception, or it's only 40 days later? That's when the neshama enters to a child. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says 40 days later. Antonino says immediately, upon conception. He says, I'll prove it to you. This is Antonino saying to Rabbi Yehuda, he says, because otherwise the semen should become putrid with the ovum. There has to be life within the ovum to be able to maintain it, that it shouldn't become putrid and shouldn't die. Therefore, that proves, so what's life? Life is neshama. Therefore, the soul has to enter immediately at time of conception. This was the rationale of Antoninos. And Rabbi Nasi says, I retract my position, you're right. He agreed, he concurred with Antoninos. So what does it mean? He was saying, the soul and the body are two entities in utero. And here, the Gemara says that the soul enters into the child at the time of conception. So see, the Gemara says saying differently than as the Maral is explaining it, right? So you have to reconcile it. So what I think it means to say, there's no question, there is a level of association. I mean, just being in the proximity, the neshama already is designated for this body, for this entity. That association is enough to maintain it, that it should not become putrid. But in terms of a human being, which is a full infusion, it's attached to become a human being, that only happens at the time of birth. Therefore, it has no relevance to Yitzhara, has no relevance. Of course, you didn't become a person yet. That's the way you understand it. Okay? So it says, he literally, the word stira means he slaps him on the mouth. Doesn't say he touches him. Literally, in the vernacular, he slams him on the mouth. When you give somebody a slap, it's called stira. Stira. Okay? It's with a test, not with a tough. Doesn't mean like contradiction. Stira. Shumako. It's a mako. He bangs him. He smites him on the mouth. Rasloma Gemar Tzuroso. Hear this? Nikrazeh Hako Alapev. This is one of the 39 activities you're not permitted to do on Shabbos is Makah B'Patish. You create a vessel, and then you put the finishing touches on the vessel. What are the finishing touches? It's phenomenal. Let's say you have a cup. You sand off, you smoothen the edges of the vessel. You created the vessel. Creating the vessel is binyan. You built it. Now, smoothing it, putting the finishing touches on, now it's a fully functioning vessel. So, when is the neshama fully infused in the body? When the child could start speaking. And like it says, when Hashem created Adam, when did he become a speaking species? When he blew the soul of life through his nostrils. So what's the Makah B'Patish? When the Malach hits him slams him on the mouth, that's the finishing touch. That causes the soul to be fully infused in the body. Now you start speaking. Now he's able to speak. Now you've become a physical being with the soul infused within it. It's terrific. That's what we speak. You put in the last hammering. Right? The Gemara says that if you build a wall and you set up the stones, the person's a mason. What does he do? He takes the trowel and he takes the handle and he hits it in place to secure it. And that's the way he builds. That's Makah B'Patish. Hamaka lakli b'gmar maseh. Zeu gmar malachto. Now it's completed. Ken gmar tzurosu shuchai medaber. When does he become a speaking species? Hu nasa al yedei gmar piv shusham koach had divri. That's when he has the power of speech. It's interesting. You know, if God forbid a child's born and the child doesn't cry, it's a problem. right? Because the child's supposed to cry. You're supposed to hear that the tongue and lips expressing some kind of sound. That's in the womb. There's no crying. But now, after the child comes out, he's supposed to cry, even though the umbilical cord is still attached. But the umbilical cord is no longer in functional. Doesn't function any longer. Now he's become the true composite of a combination, soul and body. So what is the faculty of speech? It's the mind, the mouth expressing the intellect. Person could have lips, perfect body, there's no soul, it's nothing. A child has the faculty of speech, but the child can't speak. Why? Because the brain, the intelligence, is not sufficiently developed to express. An animal. An animal has no intellect, right? But it expresses itself. Noises. Why can't it articulate words? So what's a parrot? What's a parrot? It says words. But what is when you say he's parroting words? So it's not emanating from the brain. It's parroting. It's reflecting what it heard. So where does it start? The brain retains it and spits it back out as the words that it heard. But it doesn't originate in the brain. Intellect, where it originates in the brain. That's what you say, person. Could you explain to me? He just parrots the words that he just heard. Where does it begin? Not in the brain. You're only parroting what you just heard. You want to use another word, you're only regurgitating. That's all you're doing. No, seriously, it's perfect with the way he's explaining it. One is a person considered complete. His form is complete. And that's why, when does the forgetting happen? When he becomes that physical being. Before the neshama was infused in the body, the neshama has unlimited capacity. He was taught the Torah its entirety. Because Moshe was on a plane unto himself because of his exceptional spiritual standing. What is speech? It's the expression that indicates the soul is fully infused in the body. That means the body is the prominent figure, but Moshe wasn't. His body wasn't the prominent figure. So therefore, he didn't speak. It's like Moshe, the Malach, didn't touch his mouth. He's saying something interesting. Moshe Rabbeinu, when it says he was taught the whole Torah. First, you see something. He was taught the whole Torah even before Sinai. A goy, a non-Jew, was not taught the whole Torah entirely before Sinai. Maybe he's taught the Shev Mitzvah Bnei Noach, because the Malach, before the child forgets, before he leaves the womb, the Malach adjures the child to say, "You must take an oath that whatever you were taught, you will keep throughout your life." And the child accepts it, takes the oath, and then the child is born. So what? The Malach is not going to impose a shvua, an oath, on a non-Jew. I mean, he's only bound by the Shev Mitzvah Bnei Noach, 7 Noahide laws. So probably he's taught in utro, Shev Mitzvah Bnei Noach. But he's saying, it says, Moshe was Tachsorei Me'av Me'elokim. He's saying this even when he was born initially. He did not forget the Torah that the Malach taught him. This is something you have to understand. It's unbelievable. So Moshe, he should have seen, even after he was born, from one end of the world to the other. The answer is no, he wasn't that spiritual. Before he was born, not to forget that he didn't have the power of speech, that means the intellect remained on a spiritual level. But factually, he did not see from one end of the world. I mean, so where's the growth? Right? Where's the growth? Where's the Bechira? There's nothing. But factually, before he had the story with Paro, right? Before he gave him the gold nuggets versus the hot coals, he did speak. So this is a number of years later. But if we're saying, so the moment he was born, he shouldn't have been able to speak according to Maral. Right? The speech impediment came about as a result of burning his tongue and his lips. That's why he couldn't articulate the words. It's a little difficult. But the Medrash does say, the Medrash says just the opposite. The day Moshe was born, like I said, she opened the basket, she heard the voice of a lad. He was an infant, right? He was only 3 months old. So the Midrash says the day Moshe was born, he actually had his full intellect. He was able to speak. So he spoke. This is years before, I mean, relatively speaking, before he was adopted as the grandson of Paro. Before he sat on his lap, so maybe there he was, let's say, 3 years old, 2 years, whatever he was. So he did speak. But if he's that spiritual being, why, from the moment he was born, he shouldn't have been able to speak? V'omru chachomim, this is phenomenal. Marbe dvorim, marbe shtus. You speak too much, you speak foolishness. You increase your foolishness. Ki adiba pol gashmi. Person has gift for gab. What's gift for gab? For nonsense. Person who's a true intellect, you don't say he has gift for gab. He speaks when he has what to say. If he doesn't want to say, he remains silent. And that's why the Gemara says what? Reb Shimon says in the Mishnah, he says, all my life I was exposed to Chachamim, and I've never found a better characteristic than silence. Right? That's wisdom. Silence is wisdom. We say, the Gemara says, a word is worth 1 coin, silence is worth 2. We say silence is golden. Silence is golden. Silence. It's an indication of wisdom, but why? Because the more, if you have a need to speak, that only tells you that you're a physical being. Otherwise, why should you speak? If you have nothing to say, why are you speaking? Therefore, marbe dvorim, marbe shtus. You speak excessively, it's inevitable you're increasing foolishness. Ki adiba pol gashmi, ki berov dvorim yirchak min haseichel. Because if you speak excessively, that means, you could say without him, you're not thinking. How could you speak so much? You mean your mind works at such a rate that you have so much to say? Right? Like somebody repeats himself 9 times. I've already heard. I heard what you had to say. You asked the question again. I told you the first time the question was baseless. You're asking it again. I showed you why your answer is not correct, but he repeats it again. So why is he repeating it? That's marbet var marbet shtus. Right? Okay. Vini is barloch ma shelo hoya Moshe bal peh v'loshen ramzu davar zeh binyan nelam. They allude to this in what? In a concealed way. Kohadi super kamed tainis mesh shimish Moshe b'mei muluim. Right? Moshe was before the 8th day, when the Mishkan was erected on a permanent level. For 7 days, Moshe officiated. So the Gemara asks, what garment did Moshe officiate? Right? A Kohen, he has to have the vestments. What vestment did Moshe use when he officiated? What did he wear? Rav Kana Masni b'cholok lovon she'en lo imro. He wore a white tunic that didn't have a hem on it, a border. Remez al shlemus hanivdel hasichli. What does white represent? It's purity. It's unrelated to physical. Lo hoylo imro royho lishamish b'zeh. Even though it didn't have a border, it was fully functional. Dovzu maidosu cholok. Lovon. Shein lo imro shlohoye bal amiro. The word imro means, but imro, there was no amiro. It's alluding to amiro. It was a cholok lovon, he was pure, and he could not speak. The tunic represented his profile. Imro is like beli amiro. Cholok lovon below imro. Rakir lo cholok lovon amora al haseichel shu lovon betzach. The mind itself, if it would not be subject to physicality, is clarity. It's because it's intermingled with the physicality, things get a little murky and become earthy. Be'inani omeki mashlohoylo imro remez bilvad mashikra svas habeged gam ken imro kamo adibor avol yesh l'choladas ki nikra svas habeged imro. The edge in Aramaic, the edge of a garment is called imro. That's how you say the edge of a garment. Ki adibor hu gemar tzuras odom b'sofo. When you sew a garment, you put a hem around it. And usually you put a border to ornament the garment. That's the completion of the garment. So the hem and the edge is called imro. What's the finishing touches of a human being? Imro, the power of speech. Right? When he blew the neshama, the soul of life into him, he was able to speak. That's makeh b'patish. That's the angel hitting him on the mouth. That's the finishing touch. Now he's complete. Phenomenal. V'chein imru tachlis v'sof tzuras habeged shu midas ha'odom lefich roi Moshe sham shv'chol lova she'ein lo imru. So what capacity did he function? There's no amira, because he had no relevance to the physicality. Moshe shabegru misyachis lo v'roi lo b'mashem Moshe yechoser hagemar. He didn't have the finishing touch, so to say. Shmo nasa odom gashmi. See, let's understand something. Without the midrash, with the gold and hot coals, there's no indication that he originally was able to speak, and then he had a speech impediment. He says, I have a speech impediment. That means he was born with not the ability, he wasn't able to speak, to express himself. That's the morals. It's good. It's good. Right? With the midrash, this is problematic. Because when he was born, he could fully speak. Later, he damaged the faculties of speech. Here we're saying from the very beginning, they did not operate. They did not function. The border of a garment and the power of speech is one and the same. There should be midrash. Betza imroso, betza pupira delay. Hareshem forshim betza imroso shalosh dibor. Betza, it says, the expression is pupira. Pupira also means the delay. Begachesh lo imro. Dorm yidul maskim v'hovim. Sefer Aryeh, Parshas, that's his commentary on Torah Maral. Timso pirush acher ach kihein krovim. He says something differently, but there's a similarity to what he says there and here. B'davar echad l'mevin ayin sham. We will stop here.